for a football coach, the NFL is the ultimate test.
Well, a great coach.
Few coaches achieve greatness in college and the pros.
It's over. We're world champions.
Most college coaches flop in the NFL.
My daughter could do better. My daughter could do better.
There are coaches who are meant to be college coaches.
Sometimes you have failures that can be successful.
They just weren't cut out to dealing with the pro athletes like they can with the college athletes.
Chop, chop.
They all come for ego and money, and then they decide, wow.
I didn't realize the football players were so professional.
This has gone beyond ridiculous.
We're professional football players around here, guys.
It's a weird job.
Creating this list was a tough job, but here's our top 10 coaches who swallowed up the competition in college, but were chewed up by the NFL.
We got a job to do, and we're going to do it, baby!
The number 10 coach who belonged in college, John McKay.
I think it's very debatable whether or not he should be on that list. He should be near the bottom of it if you're talking about a top 10.
There are a hell of a lot of careers going to end Monday.
He had an unblemished name and reputation when he hit Tampa Bay. At 0-26, it was throw McKay in the Bay time.
Hey, hey, Tampa Bay, the Bucs are hot and ready to play. Hey, hey, Tampa Bay.
The years have not made the Tampa Bay Bucs' infamous fight song sound any sweeter. Nor has time erased the memory of the Bucs' first claim to fame, a 26-game losing streak that helped land John McKay at number 10 on our countdown.
Hey, hey, Tampa Bay, go!
The fact that they set the record for ineptness for 26 straight losses just tagged him forever, and he thought he could rise above it, but it's probably impossible to rise above that.
The only thing that the team had going at times was his sense of humor.
Well, we didn't block him, but we made up for it by not tackling.
After one of the losses, the questioner asked him, what do you think about the execution of your team? And he said, I'd be all for it.
Losing was an unfamiliar feeling to McKay when he came to the Bucs from USC, where his Trojans played in 8 Rose Bowls and won 4 national titles.
He was a frequent guest on the Johnny Carson show.
You're going to run now? Curl.
Now all of a sudden he was a frequent butt of Johnny Carson's jokes because of how horrible his Buccaneers were.
It's all right. You had to catch his mid, you'd have caught it.
I think that if you had brought in some of those USC teams, the Bucs, I think, would have had to play really, really well to stick around.
After about 5 or 6 weeks into it, when the realization hit of how bad it was going to be, my father knew what he had gotten into and definitely regretted it.
Well, these guys are almost gutless. And the ones that aren't that are brainless.
He didn't realize just how quick the game was in the NFL.
I don't think anybody's going to make the Olympic team on this squad.
How much better the athletes were, and really how much time, dedication, and commitment it took.
There's a cold beer if you'd like one in Mr. Culverhouse's office.
He certainly had a legendary struggle in getting the Bucs off the ground.
You can't stop a pass or a run. Otherwise, we're in great shape.
But one, he did take an expansion team, so I think he should be judged a little differently.
The Bucs of 76 and 77 was the worst collection of 2 teams in history. John McKay happened to be the coach, but he was the one who built one of the greatest defenses of that era.
Our number 10 coach might have regretted coming to Tampa, but eventually, Bucs fans were glad to have him. By his 4th season, McKay won a division title and guided the Bucs into the NFC Championship.
What we should do is go down and get their champagne, but we'll drink our beer.
The downfall of the Bucs came because of the miser owner Hugh Culverhouse, not because of John McKay.
We're here for one reason and one reason only.
Hugh Culverhouse wouldn't pay Doug Williams to come back, and there went the franchise.
He went on to coach 9 years in Tampa Bay. Overall, the record is not pretty, but I think he was successful in a sense because he did build a franchise that was competitive. So you can't totally dismiss the John McKay era and say that he was a college flop.
When we return, which coach could sell ice to Eskimos but failed to make the sale in the NFL?
He just couldn't get the players to buy in.
Our countdown is a list of coaches who won in college but not the pros. But some men have been successful on both levels. Tom Coughlin built Boston College into a top 20 program and engineered one of the greatest upsets in Super Bowl history.
The New York Giants have knocked off the New England Patriots.
Jimmy Johnson gets an A for a title at the U and 2 Super Bowls in Big D.
I gotta get a new ring.
Long before Dick Vermeil won the Super Bowl, he led UCLA to an upset of number 1 ranked Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Our next coach has also won the Rose Bowl, but wilted in the NFL.
The number 9 coach who belonged in college, Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll was meant to be a college coach.
Pete Carroll won more than 80% of his games at USC. He also led the Trojans to a pair of national championships.
Why Pete Carroll is successful on the college level, I'm sure has a lot to do with the experiences he gained on the NFL level.
Carroll's first head coaching job came with the Jets in 1994. New York started the season 6-5 before one play sent the Jets into a tailspin.
30 seconds to go. I believe Marino is saying I'm going to spike it.
Marino takes the snap from center. He's looking. He throws. Touchdown, Dolphins!
New York lost its last 5 games and Carroll was fired.
Not enough of a chance in New York. See if he can be a head coach.
In 1997, Carroll was given another chance, this time with the Patriots. Unfortunately for our number 9 coach, he was bookended by 2 future Hall of Fame coaches, Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick.
You look at a guy like Parcells,
Hey, we're getting our ass kicked. You're right.
who was so dismissive and so tired, and I've seen it all before. And then to Belichick, you can't have a stranger middle of the sandwich than Pete Carroll.
Nice job, man.
I felt that the hard-nosed approach was the only way to go in the National Football League for a coach. Bill Parcells was that way when he was the coach.
Wake up, President.
Bill Belichick is that way now. It's just not Pete's style to be the kind of coach that I think it takes to win in the National Football League.
Almost from Jump Street, you could see that his enthusiasm might be a little misplaced coming in after Bill Parcells. He just couldn't get the players to buy in.
And it wasn't even close, you know.
And the players were eye-rolling from the beginning.
Take an incredible amount of pride that you are going to be the best who ever was at snapping football.
Given a different situation, Pete Carroll would be tremendously successful in the NFL. But this was a Patriots team that thought it knew it all.
This ain't working, fellas.
After 3 seasons in New England, our number 9 coach went back to school, signing on with USC in 2001.
His personality is perfectly suited for the college campus.
It's a great day. It's a great day to be a Trojan.
He was not a good fit at the NFL level because he was corny. He was hokey.
I want you to burn every step of the way. Keep it burning. Keep it burning. Keep it burning till the fire's so big they give you nothing back.
He was too much of a rah-rah guy.
We can do this.
He is kind of the quintessential rah-rah coach.
Want nothing but guys with a big time heart.
Pass the vomit bag. I think I'm going to throw up.
Rah-rah works on campuses like USC.
See, certain guys that belong in the college ranks because they reach the young people. Pete Carroll is one of those guys. I think he reaches the young person.
I'm proud to be back, you know. I like the league a lot.
I mean, you accomplished a lot at SC. Now it's time to move back up.
In 2010, Pete Carroll returned to the NFL as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
He talks about how that it was so good for him to go to USC because when he was in the NFL as a head coach the first time, he didn't really know what he was about. When he went to SC, because of the success they had, it showed him that, yes, I am doing things the right way. This program will work.
In his first year, Seattle won the NFC West and pulled off an improbable upset over the defending Super Bowl champion Saints.
Don't it just feel great? Don't it just feel great? God dang, that feels so good.
It's going to be tough for that style to hold up, though. If you lose your energy or it drains out of you, which is what happened to Carroll the first time around, you're not going to get it back.
The number 8 coach who belonged in college, Dick McPherson.
I think it was a surprise that he was even hired. He wasn't that successful a college coach.
Dick McPherson didn't drop jaws at Syracuse, but his 1987 season was enough to spur interest from the NFL.
They had this magical year in 1987 where everything came together. He had an 11-0-1 team.
And Syracuse had another score.
He fit the college mold so much. The rah-rah guy who bought into the school spirit and all that stuff, the kind of thing that doesn't work in the NFL.
In 1991, the New England Patriots called on our number 8 coach and his trademark rah-rah spirit.
Enthusiasm is enthusiasm. He's full of it.
I'd just like to get a hold of the recipe for the coffee he drinks for the game. So I may see a 60-year-old man doing jumping jacks and cartwheels down the sidelines.
At the time Dick McPherson went to the Patriots, they were not a very well-run organization.
It was sort of a rudderless ship at that point in time.
The wheels are starting to fall off the wagon here.
At that point, the Patriots were in such deep decline.
Only thing left is a safety. There it is. There it is.
That you almost wanted to find something likable about them, and Dick McPherson was likable.
Coach Mack was a breath of fresh air. He didn't walk around with that sense that he's in a castle and everybody else is a servant.
You know, at his press conferences, he made sure to serve his favorite clam chowder.
Coach Mack took over a 1-win team and led them to 6 victories in his first season.
I think he got the most out of that team to go 6-10.
A lot of people thought that was a pretty good coaching job.
I think next year this team has a very good chance of being in the playoffs and making some heads turn.
I think we can go to the Super Bowl, in the near future. If not next year, we can get darn close to it.
But you weren't expecting him to come up here and turn everything around for the Patriots by any stretch.
The next year, he got sick. Dante Scarnecchia, he was put in charge by Dick McPherson.
Give my regards to Matt, will you?
But he really wasn't given the title of head coach, and so the whole situation was kind of muddled.
I don't think we ever found out how good a coach he was because it was such a dismal situation.
Oh, boy. Now, they had a chance here to make a play, Gino, and they blow it by a bad snap from center.
With just 8 wins in 2 seasons, the Patriots fired the number 8 coach on our list.
I felt bad for him.
Who knows what Dick McPherson could have done with the Krafts as his owners, but Dick McPherson with the prior administration, not a good fit.
Coming up, which coach lied and cheated his own empire?
Biggest 2-bit phony fraud I've ever known in my life.
While some people wish they never left college, these coaches wish they never went there.
Was he from college? I hate them college guys.
Jerry Glanville lasted 2 decades in the NFL as a pro assistant and head coach. If his 3-8 record at Portland State in 2007 is any indication, his career in college will be much shorter.
I'll be selling groceries.
Dennis Green flunked at Northwestern and Stanford, where his teams let more than 2/3 of their opponents get away.
We let him off the hook.
We've got to be the dumbest team in America.
Before he looked silly coaching Nebraska, Bill Callahan won an AFC title in Oakland.
The silver and black are back.
Unlike these college failures, our next coach loved being on campus.
The number 7 coach who belonged in college, Nick Saban.
Nick Saban is the biggest piece of turd to ever hit Miami.
Prior to his splash in Miami, Nick Saban won more than 70% of his games at LSU. After winning a national championship in 2004, Saban floated east to the Miami Dolphins.
I thought he was going to coach well in the league. His first year in Miami I thought was very promising.
It's coming our way. Let's go. It's coming our way.
You got to be proud of him because Saban's got him going in the right direction.
Nick Saban, the absolute tightest wound human ever to coach an NFL team.
Squeeze him.
Utterly joyless.
Nobody feels good.
Humorless.
None of them feel good.
And lacking the Bill Belichick touch to get away with it.
They don't make him like they used to, though,
He was such a dictator. People would kind of walk the other way in the hall because they just didn't even want to cross his path.
What are we doing?
That's why they call him the Nicktator.
Good job, Frank. Frank. Great effort, Frank. Hey, Frank, good job, man. That's a great effort, man.
That's Cliff, coach. That's Cliff.
That's what I said, didn't I?
No, you said Frank. I'm sorry.
No, I thought I said Cliff.
No, you said Frank.
In 2006, the Dictator lost his grip on the Dolphins. They won just 6 games, and Saban ended his own reign in Miami.
Everyone kind of picked the Dolphins as a team to go to the playoffs in his second year.
The Dolphins have taken over. Win on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Of course, we now know that he was already thinking of getting out by December of that year.
Nick Saban thought it was going to be easy to come to the NFL and do things the way he wanted.
And it ain't that hard to do. It's like a country club out here, man.
But it just doesn't work that way.
No, no, no!
Nick Saban was used to being in a small college setting with limited amount of media, wanted to control the media and tell them what the day's story was.
I don't know why it's so important that we define exactly what that is, but what is what is.
This has gone beyond ridiculous.
The way Nick Saban came into the league saying that he had no interest in the Miami Dolphins job when he was at LSU.
And I can't believe that anybody would even ask about it.
I don't even know why this is a topic of conversation. He kept saying every day.
Where did he go?
2 years later, he was wondering why his name being linked to the University of Alabama kept coming up every day.
I'm not going to Alabama. I'm not going to Alabama.
Challenges your professional integrity a little bit to even talk about it.
Where did he go?
Just 4 days after the 2006 season, our number 7 coach took his 15-17 NFL record to Alabama.
You don't want to show your face anywhere when you get done with this one. If Nick Saban walked through that door right now, I'd say, let's go. Let's start throwing down. Biggest two-bit phony fraud I've ever known in my life. The ultimate liar and contract breaker.
Represent!
I'm glad that he's out of the pros because he's pretty much reviled because of it.
He was a miserable failure as a head coach in professional football.
The number 6 coach who belonged in college, Dennis Erickson.
Testaverde, quarterback draw, down at the 1. The Jets are saying yes, the Seahawks are saying no. They gave it to him. Touchdown, New York Jets. I can't believe it.
It was just ridiculous that call was made as a touchdown.
Awful, just awful.
And it cost the Seahawks the playoffs, and it cost Dennis Erickson his job. He gets fired at the end of the season.
Totally disappointing. That just makes you sick.
In 1998, Dennis Erickson's Seahawks career ended with a bad call, but it was an easy call for Seattle to hire our number 6 coach 4 years earlier. After all, he won 2 national titles at Miami.
Dennis Erickson has his team playing, and he's got players that are playing for him. That's always a sign of respect for the coach.
He was going to try his hand in the NFL. He had the itch.
Dennis Erickson will become the next head football coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
Once you win in Miami, there wasn't anything left for you to prove other than the NFL.
Talk about somebody riding into town on a white horse.
No timetable on a lot of things, but you know how competitive I am.
He had the roots. He's from Everett, which is just up the road from Seattle. Then, of course, he went to Miami and won the national championships with a very exciting, wide-open offense.
Is it a touchdown, Miami?
When he came in, it was just like, boy, they couldn't have hired anybody better than Dennis Erickson.
Dennis Erickson, in some ways, is the ideal pro coach. Gives his players a lot of leeway.
Get down there! Hurt the body!
They feel like they're treated like men, even when sometimes they might not deserve it.
That actually kind of worked against him. I remember late in his tenure, Cortez Kennedy, at one point in the hallway, just admitted the inmates are running the asylum around here.
Let's go!
Compounding that, he was included in a cover Sports Illustrated story, Coaches Out of Control.
The questions mounted.
And you wonder about Dennis Erickson. Will he last with this team and be back next year?
Some simply wondered what had happened to the offensive innovation for which Erickson was famous.
They had Joey Galloway at the time, and the coaches were constantly wringing their hands about how can we get the ball into Joey Galloway's hands. In Miami, they had run that little bubble wide receiver screen, and at one point I asked someone, why don't they just do that thing? And their explanation was, well, Dennis thinks that's a college play and it won't work at this level.
Erickson is not a happy guy, and I don't blame him. If you don't win enough ball games, even if you're a good coach, things do happen.
Fired by Seattle, our number 6 coach took over at Oregon State in 1999. When his Beavers won the Fiesta Bowl, one NFL team couldn't resist giving Erickson another chance.
Had no resume, NFL related, to warrant such a move. And boom, out of nowhere, here comes the San Francisco 49ers.
Erickson posted a 9-23 record and was fired again at the end of 2004.
He was a great example of a coach who got to the NFL and was really kind of overmatched.
Maybe you could do another show on bad decisions. Whoever the hell it was who hired him for that second go-around.
Up next, the landslide college winner.
I watched your teams. I've seen him play in the Orange Bowl.
Who was a well-connected pro flop.
And I stayed in touch with him later when he went up to St. Louis.
Before we continue our countdown of coaches who belonged in college, let's recap the list so far.
Number 10, John McKay keeps them laughing and losing in Tampa Bay.
At 0-26, it was throw McKay in the Bay time.
Number 9, Mayday for Pete Carroll with the Jets and Patriots.
The players were eye-rolling from the beginning.
Number 8, Coach Max clam chowder with a side of defeat.
I think it was a surprise that he was even hired. He wasn't that successful a college coach.
Number 7, the Nictator abandons his own evil empire.
He was a miserable failure as a head coach in professional football.
Number 6, Dennis Erickson, a hurricane in college, a natural disaster in the NFL.
Just makes you sick.
And now, the number 5 coach who belonged in college, Bill Peterson.
Talk about Bill Peterson as a head coach. What was he like?
Bill was terrible.
Before choking down his cup of coffee in the NFL, Bill Peterson was toasted as a legend in Tallahassee.
You got to understand, at one point, Florida State was a women's school. So for it to come out of nowhere and be even relevant in football was an amazing accomplishment, and that accomplishment started when Bill Peterson got there.
And he had this amazing gift to be able to pick coaches.
At one point, he had Bill Parcells, Joe Gibbs, and Bobby Bowden on his staffs. So this man knew something about football, knew how to teach coaches how to coach football. Apparently, he just couldn't coach it himself.
In 1972, Peterson said goodbye to college chump change and cashed in with the Houston Oilers.
He had $1 million contract, first time anybody ever heard of $1 million contract.
Bud Adams gave Bill Peterson a lifetime contract and fired him halfway into the second year. And the guy may have been a really good college coach, but he was totally overmatched.
But he came to Houston, it was almost as if Pete was intimidated by the NFL thing.
He was not a professional football coach.
If we are in this kind of a situation, let's go third down punt.
I mean, it was really a mess.
This is the rookie coach, Bill Peterson, and he's upset.
In 1972, our number 5 coach led Houston to just one win. After starting 0-5 in 73, the Oilers booted Peterson with 9 games left in the season.
For the faithful who followed the fortunes of the 1973 Houston Oilers, disappointments were many.
I think he made it more difficult for himself than it should have been.
Bill Peterson was his own destructor.
What's the trouble out there?
This guy couldn't remember my name. He called me Alvin all the time.
That's the way Alvin! That's the way Alvin!
I mean, I hated that with a passion.
Bill Peterson was the master of the malaprop. He would tell the players to stand on their helmets with the sidelines under their arm.
We're not going to take this standing down.
If you think for one damn minute I'm going to take a loss standing down, you just have another thought coming.
He just butchered the English language.
All right, get your heads geared. Get them up, let's go.
You guys pair up in groups of 3 and line up in a circle.
That was right out of Marx Brothers right there.
I just want you to give me 110% for till 5 o'clock. And then let's go home. We're going out there this first half, and we're going to explode like a bomb. Then the second, we're just going to get higher. Third quarter, we're going to get higher. And the fourth quarter, we're just going to catch on fire, and that's our game plan. And let's just go out and do it that way.
How do you inspire players when you can't get the words out of your mouth correctly?
Well, we can't. No way for us to. Jesus.
And they laughed at him.
Hey, God, you can't do that. Hell, you're in your home state.
Bill Peterson, which was the biggest joke I've ever been involved with in my life.
Where is the scoreboard?
To this day, I don't know how he got a coaching job here.
Nobody could ever figure it out. It was the worst period in the history of the Houston Oilers, and if Bud Adams hadn't wised up and fired him, they may never have won a game.
The number 4 coach who belonged in college, Bud Wilkinson.
Bud Wilkinson had a reputation of being the great white father of football, almost a godly figure.
Wilkinson was the epitome of college football. I mean, he was at the top.
And when you think about college football and domination and dynasties, you got to think about what Bud Wilkinson did at the University of Oklahoma.
Wilkinson led the Sooners to 3 national titles and a 47-game winning streak, an NCAA record that still stands today.
Oklahoma extends its winning streak to 22.
35 straight, 41 victories in a row.
I think it's one of the greatest achievements in the history of sports.
I went all through college, and I never lost a game.
After coaching his final season in 1963, our number 4 coach spent more than a decade in a different arena.
I left coaching to get involved in politics and then was in government.
Occasionally we'd be ahead at halftime.
I watched your teams. I've seen them play in the Orange Bowl.
My relationship with Bud Wilkinson was as a close friend. He, too, ran for the Senate and lost up in Oklahoma. And I lost here in Texas in that same year.
Despite a 14-year absence from coaching, the NFL summoned the great white father of football.
So the Cardinals set out to find the one man who would restore the team to a challenging position in the race for the Super Bowl. The man selected is simply a coaching legend. His name, Bud Wilkinson.
I don't know how to coach a team other than my way, and hopefully it'll work out okay.
And I remember how shocked everyone was when the coach was Bud Wilkinson. I just didn't think it was going to happen because he'd been out so long.
What has it been? 16 years, I think, since he's won a football game.
I had no idea that he was even interested in coaching in the pros.
I don't think anybody knew what to make of it.
That move was made for PR more than anything. We're going to hire this great name, and he's going to be a great coach.
When you lure a guy out of retirement because of who he is, you're making a big mistake.
The first year, they started out 0-8.
When you lose 8 games in a row, certainly you're going to be disappointed about what's happened.
The second half of the season, they went 6-2.
There we go. Turn it on, turn it on, turn it on.
And I think everybody had optimism coming into the next year.
Wilkinson's second season was a 3-10 disaster that began with a QB whose last name looked like a Scrabble bonanza.
Steve Pizarkowicz couldn't play. It was as simple as that. The ownership wanted him to play Steve Pizarkowicz.
That was when Wilkinson drew the line in the sand and said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then they fired him with 3 games remaining.
It was one of those freak show appearances. And the whole thing was an embarrassment.
Please, let's get out of our bench area if you don't mind.
He wasn't really tuned into the pro game.
What is the difference between, college football and pro? I don't think there's that much difference.
He really kind of tarnished his coaching career by trying the Cardinals. Bud Wilkinson should have taught other coaches, when you think about coming back for that cherry on the top of your career, it's usually anything but.
Coming up, the story of how our number 3 coach,
we knew he was a great interview as far as the press is concerned,
flapped his gums in the NFL.
I can't even do it as long as he did it.
Many people felt that Barry Switzer should have made our list of coaches who belonged in college.
We got a job to do, and we're going to do it, baby!
Whether he knew it or not, Barry walked into the biggest no-win situation in the history of the National Football League. Because if he won with players that Jimmy had coached.
But how could we put the coach of a Super Bowl champion on our list?
We did it our way, baby! We did it! We did it! We did it!
Our next coach also did it his way and failed miserably.
The number 3 coach who belonged in college, Steve Spurrier.
His was a Star Wars offense in a Stone Age conference. They weren't ready for what the Gators under Steve Spurrier unleashed on this league.
Steve Spurrier's fun and gun offense led Florida to the 1996 national title. It also landed him a 5-year, $25 million contract with the Redskins in 2002.
Everybody was excited to hear the news that Spurrier was coming. I mean, holy cow. It's Steve Spurrier, it's fun and gun and it's personality and it's a guy on the visor. It's like a movie star coming to town. And we knew he was a great interview as far as the press is concerned.
The sunshine follows the Gators, and maybe sunshine is going to start following the Redskins, and we're going to have some good fortune.
You talk about a bad fit.
It takes more than this to get me out of shorts.
He went to the Redskins because of money. Dan Snyder threw a lot of money after him. That's not an ideal situation, especially for a coach who's coming to the NFL for the first time since he was a backup quarterback.
Spurrier had once been the 3rd overall pick in the draft, which means that before he was a bust as a coach, he was a bust as a player.
He was a pretty damn good punter along the way, but he'll be the first to tell you that he didn't excel in the National Football League because he was lazy. But he did have natural ability, and that showed itself at times.
When Spurrier came back to the NFL sidelines as a coach, the reputation he earned as a player came with him.
Spurrier, legend has it, liked to divvy up responsibilities among his staff.
Do we have a horn guy for the 10 o'clock?
Liked to golf.
This is like playing golf in Ireland a day like this. Oh, yes, perfect.
Well, at the NFL level, you can't be a very good golfer. You've got to work.
What's our punter's name?
The buzz on him was that he just didn't.
Coach Helton, don't keep him too long. Lunch is about time.
Spurrier's first game, the Redskins erupted for like 500 yards of total offense.
Touchdown, Washington Redskins.
It's the good old times. The fun and gun has arrived in Washington. He didn't fail in the NFL because he's a bad coach. Steve Spurrier's failing was he didn't adjust.
Go, push!
He believed in sending out your receivers and running your offense and making the defense adjust. Well, the defense adjusted okay, and apparently it wasn't very hard because the next week was a Monday Night Football game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
What's the old ball coach going to do here?
He wasn't going to keep guys in to help block, and before Steve Spurrier could probably throw his first visor, it was 14-0.
This has to be devastating for any kind of ball coach.
Go back in that Monday Night Football video of Spurrier after one particular play just looking up to the sky and going...
An exasperating evening thus far for Steve Spurrier.
I can't even do it as long as he did it.
That in regular speed would have been incredible.
How do you do that?
Our number 3 coach was finding that without the right guns, the fun and gun was no fun at all.
If you'd Snoopy, do it.
Spurrier won at Florida because he had better talent. I don't think he understood that he didn't have the talent in Washington, and there was no one here to get him better talent, and he lost. It's as simple as that.
He wanted to bring Gators. He brought Danny Werfel. He brought Chris Doering.
He also lacked, I think, the quarterback to be able to get the job done. Danny didn't have an arm anymore. Shane Matthews hadn't really had any success at the professional level.
He needed a guy, like a general manager, to say, Steve, you can't bring your Gators here.
Spurrier spent 12 years as head coach of the Gators and 2 seasons leading the Redskins. He lost 27 times as a Gator, 20 as a Redskin.
At the end of his watch on the Redskins, he just looked like a guy who wanted out of there. And when you're making $5 million a year and you don't want to be there, you don't need to be there.
Coming up, our number 2 coach.
Gotta be kidding. Embarrassing.
A controversial choice.
I think you have him misrepresented. He should be number 1.
Before their unforgettable NFL careers, some coaching legends made successful stops in college that are often forgotten. Don Air Coryell spent 12 years at San Diego State, cooking up his famous offense.
We drank the wine and we ate the crab.
Paul Brown spent 3 years at Ohio State, and his former assistant Bill Walsh,
Congratulations for a tremendous effort,
had 2 terms at Stanford. Walsh was a whiz at drawing up plays in the dirt, but mud was all our next coach could make when he tried to conjure his college magic in the pros.
The number 2 coach who belonged in college, Lou Holtz.
I think you have him misrepresented. I really do. He should be number 1. I called it the Lou Holtz era. That's ERROR.
He needs an Alka-Seltzer is what he needs.
We were no good. No offense, no defense.
Not a whole lot of smiles.
And I liked Lou Holtz, but
he was the wrong guy at the wrong time for the wrong job.
Get me another ball club in here.
I don't think that players really took him seriously.
He reminded me of this guy with the pipe in his mouth. You remember the Keebler cookie commercial?
He was a college coach through and through. That little tinny voice was never going to carry.
How you doing, Billy?
In the wide open spaces of the NFL.
30-second hang. Okay, 30-second hang all the way.
Lou Holtz is the Dr. Frankenstein of college coaches, the one man who can give life to a program that others have left for dead.
And I'm going to tell you, it takes something special to be able to do that.
He's the only man in history to lead 6 different schools to bowl games and has won a national title with the famed Fighting Irish.
Notre Dame had fallen on some hard times. There's a Jerry Faust mistake. And they needed credibility. Lou Holtz gave them credibility.
This is what I wanted. I wanted our behind in the second half. I wanted to put it into this once and for all where Notre Dame can't come back.
Lou Holtz had sort of that hypnotic effect. That's why he has been a success turning these programs around wherever he goes.
You will be successful. It's just a question of when.
Lou Holtz is the kind of guy who had fun being a college football coach, liked the campus life.
Great academics will never sacrifice that.
I think he liked needling his young players.
Come on, son, we're going to break you loose Saturday.
Holtz's playbook for success worked so well at so many colleges, it was only natural that he brought it with him to the NFL.
For a coach to come in and bring the rah-rah mentality.
Oh, yeah, well handled.
It's a great shock and disappointment when he sees blank faces staring at him. Players in the NFL know what they're supposed to do.
I have him on a blitz.
You just go, this is the NFL. You got to be kidding.
Those guys had seen it all. They've been to the Super Bowl. They played for Weeb Eubank. Kind of tough to teach those old dogs new tricks. In reality, he came in with some tricks.
Holtz tried to motivate using magic.
If you get it just the right way, you can actually rub it into your arm so that it'll disappear.
He tried to shake up New York's offense.
I definitely think the veer can be used in pro football.
That's when I kind of thought he was crazy. You can't run the veer in the pros. I mean, it's not happening. I mean, you got 9 guys coming through a hole at Mach 5. You're not veering anybody.
He even tried to give the Jets their very own fight song.
He gets up in front of everybody, says, "Okay, everybody, this is a new song we're going to sing in the same key that we're going to sing when the caissons come rolling along."
I don't think it's any different.
When the game acts like men, we're together, win or lose. New York Jets keep rolling along. Isn't that terrific?
It did nothing for the team. It did nothing.
It wouldn't have worked with any team that I coached. I can just imagine me trying to teach Larry Zonka how to sing a fight song or Manny Fernandez.
What do you guys think of that?
When Lou did that, he insulted their intelligence.
And wherever we go, we'll let the critics know that the Jets are here to stay.
Realizing that he belonged in college, our number 2 coach resigned with 1 game left in his first NFL season. His record, 3 wins, 10 losses.
Perhaps the best thing that can be said about the 1976 New York Jets season is that it's over.
When Holtz left, he said God didn't intend him to be a pro football coach, and he was honest about it. That's more than I can tell you about other coaches who completely stood out there and bald-faced lied to everybody.
Up next, we'll unveil our number 1 coach.
The bottom of the barrel.
A man who looks the same in any light.
Gutless.
Gutless.
Despicable.
Before we reveal the number 1 coach who belonged in college, let's recap our list of coaches who failed to make the grade in the NFL.
Number 10, John McKay keeps Tampa Bay thirsty for a win.
We'll drink our beer.
Number 9, Pete Carroll, a repeat failure with the Jets and Patriots.
He was not a good fit at the NFL level because he was corny. He was hokey.
Number 8, Coach Mac's friendly disposition is no match for the poor Pats.
But you weren't expecting him to come up here and turn everything around for the Patriots by any stretch.
Number 7, St. Nick leaves Miami a big fat chunk of coal.
The ultimate liar, and I'm glad that he's out of the pros.
Number 6, Dennis Erickson's offense downright offensive.
Well, Dennis thinks that's a college play and it won't work at this level.
Number 5, Bill Peterson, the NFL's first $1 million coaching flop.
Bill was terrible.
Number 4, this bud was a dud in St. Louis.
What has it been, 16 years since he's won a football game?
Number 3, no fun in the gun for the old ball coach. Number 2, a sour stint in the Big Apple for Sweet Lou.
I think you have him misrepresented. I really do. He should be number 1.
And now, the #1 coach who belonged in college, Bobby Petrino.
The cardinal sin in the NFL, he quit.
Yesterday, Bobby Petrino submitted his resignation to the Atlanta Falcons.
He's up and quit.
Bobby Petrino, the only guy that could make Nick Saban look like he's on house arrest.
Is he's telling you one thing.
Did not go out and seek any other job.
He's making moves to do something else.
And here I am now, the head coach at University of Arkansas.
He could have waited another 3 weeks, but he was busy making a deal to go to Arkansas.
I don't think no one would respect him in this building.
How could you possibly urge a player to give his all? Better hurry up! If you're going to turn around and quit when the going gets tough. That absolutely consigns him to the bottom of the barrel.
Petrino figured to be a guy who would translate well to the NFL.
He was an offensive guy at Louisville.
Yeah, he's going to find the defense's weakness.
He was good with the quarterback's prom.
All that success at 41-9. Also won a BCS game last year, the FedEx Orange Bowl.
So I do not blame Blank at all for hiring Petrino.
Bobby Petrino seemed too good to be true, and he was.
Petrino, really from day one,
Certainly an exciting day for me.
was a disaster waiting to happen.
He was a pretend general.
There was never any belief that this was the guy that was going to lead them to the promised land.
You know, everything that came out of his mouth for 8 months was a lie.
I think I've always been able to make people around me feel better about themselves.
He had some issues there that were beyond his control. The Michael Vick situation was a terrible thing for any coach to face in season 10, let alone season 1. But he never set out to engage his players.
You know, I haven't gotten to know him, since he's been here.
When our #1 coach couldn't corral his pro players, Petrino's high-powered offense had no juice.
When the Falcons get in the red zone, they often leave red-faced.
He realized that he made the wrong decision by dealing with guys like Algie Crumpler that were going to have really powerful opinions, guys like D'Angelo Hall who were going to scream back at him.
Under Petrino, Atlanta went 3-10, but not until his Week 14 vow to stay in the Falcons' foxhole did he clinch the #1 spot on our list.
His answer was, and shook my hand, you have a head coach. That was 6 hours prior to the game on Monday.
The next morning, he was gone.
It just really shows what kind of guy this man was.
It's a selfish act, and a guy that has no class only thinks about himself.
Not only does he bolt for a college job during their season.
It was easy to come here to the University of Arkansas and become the head coach.
But he's so gutless.
Thank you very much.
He tells his staff, gives them like a 15-second, well, I'm out of here, guys, then leaves a form letter in players' lockers.
Crossed out was the name of former head coach Bobby Petrino. Underneath was written the word coward.
After Petrino left the Falcons with a Dear John letter, they were stunned again just hours later to see their ex-coach singing his new song.
When you saw him doing, the hog chant.
Let's call those hogs!
Pig suey or, whatever it's called down there. That's what pushed everybody over the edge.
It was horrible. I mean, it was gutless.
Gutless.
I thought that was a disgrace.
People open the door for you. Come on, be a part of this family. You don't do that to family.
A selfish act.
You don't walk away and say, thanks for the money.
The way that we feel is betrayed and let down.
Shame on Arkansas. How are they going to be able to get recruits in there that are going to believe in Bobby Petrino? Got some of that pig suey for y'all today.
When's the next deal coming along that you're going to walk from the commitment to these young men?
Bobby Petrino will never be able to shake this, and rightfully so.
Despicable.
So what have we learned? It's bad to quit, it's worse to lie, and not all football coaches are created equal. Some simply belong in college.
The Petrino experience, 13 games and out, will teach everybody once again, think twice before you get that college coach, no matter how innovative, how successful he's been. It's really a different ballgame.
The world of professional football is for real men, not for guys who think they're men.